I woke up earlier than usual. The house was still and quiet, the way it always was at that hour. But something in me, something that had been festering for weeks, refused to let me sleep any longer. I knew something was wrong long before I found the evidence. Something deep inside had been eating at me, telling me I was living a lie, but I refused to listen. Until now. I sat up in bed, glancing at the empty side of the mattress. The space where my husband usually slept was cold, untouched. His side of the bed had always been the warmest, comforting, a sign that he was just a few inches away from me. Now, it felt like an eternity. I turned to look at the clock. 5 a.m. I had woken up to silence, but something told me this quiet would be different. I had to act. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I tried to push back the feeling of dread, but it wasn't working. I got up and tiptoed to the window, peering outside. The driveway was empty. His car was gone. He had been home late last night, too late, and now he was gone again. That nagging feeling in my stomach twisted tighter. He had been acting distant for weeks, avoiding my touch, his eyes often drifting when I spoke to him. I had pushed those thoughts to the back of my mind, telling myself it was just stress or work, but the truth was undeniable now. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, hesitated for a moment, and then unlocked it. A simple message notification from her. "How are you?" It read. I almost dropped the phone. I should have deleted the message, but I didn't. I couldn't. Because deep down, I knew what I would find if I looked further. I opened the message. There it was. My best friend, the woman I had trusted more than anyone, had been texting him. For weeks, maybe months. And I hadn't noticed. I should have noticed. I scrolled through the messages, my hands shaking with every tap. The last message was from last night. "I'll see you soon, love. I miss you." I dropped the phone onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. My heart felt as if it had stopped beating. Betrayal. I could feel the weight of it in every inch of my body. It was in the air, thick and suffocating. I had always trusted him. I had always trusted her. I slowly stood up and walked into the kitchen, trying to steady my breathing. My fingers were numb. My mind was racing. How could they do this to me? The questions began flooding my thoughts, one after the other. How long had this been going on? Why didn't I see it? Why didn't he even try to hide it? I poured myself a glass of water, the coolness of it doing little to soothe the fire raging inside me. My eyes wandered to the family photo on the fridge, our wedding picture. We were so happy then. Or so I thought. A loud noise snapped me back to reality. The front door. I didn't hear it open, but I heard footsteps approaching. His footsteps. I wasn't ready for this. He wasn't supposed to be home yet. I hadn't even had time to process the betrayal, to think about what came next. He was early, and everything inside me screamed to hide the phone, to pretend I was still blissfully unaware. But I wasn't unaware. Not anymore. I heard the door creak open, and he stepped inside. His face, as always, was calm, collected, like nothing had happened. I could smell the hint of cologne, the same one he wore when we went out to dinner or to family gatherings. The same scent that once comforted me, now made my stomach churn. "Morning," he said, his voice casual. It sounded rehearsed, forced. He wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. I looked at him, my gaze hardening, but I said nothing. Not yet. I had to think. I had to plan. I had to make them both feel what I felt. The silence between us grew thicker as he made his way to the kitchen. I could hear the clink of cups, the sound of him making coffee, like everything was perfectly normal. Normal? Nothing was normal. I couldn't even look at him without seeing her in my mind. His eyes, once filled with love and warmth, now seemed cold, distant. I couldn't remember the last time he had looked at me the way he used to. It felt like we were strangers, but I had no idea how far back that distance went. I stood there, rooted to the spot, as the seconds stretched into minutes. I could feel the tears welling up, but I refused to let them fall. I wasn't going to cry for him. I wasn't going to break down in front of him. He came back into the room, coffee cup in hand, and gave me a small, almost nonchalant smile. "You okay?" I nodded, my mouth dry. I couldn't trust myself to speak just yet. Not until I had my plan in place. Not until I had everything figured out. "Are you going somewhere today?" he asked, taking a sip from his cup. The question hit me like a slap. Am I going somewhere today? I didn't even know where I was anymore. My whole life had been a lie. "No," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos in my mind. "I'm not going anywhere." He didn't press. Of course, he wouldn't. He never would. Not now. As he turned back to the kitchen, I finally let the truth sink in. My life, the life I had worked so hard to build, was gone. And I wasn't going to sit around and cry about it. I wasn't going to beg for answers or explanations. I was going to make him pay. And her. I turned away from him, my heart pounding in my chest. The anger was burning now, taking over every thought, every movement. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. Justice for the woman I used to be, for the woman I had lost. I had nothing left to lose. The plan would come next. Quietly, carefully. But first, I needed answers. It didn't take long for me to come up with a plan. I knew I couldn't confront him just yet, and I certainly wasn't going to let her see how much I had found out. No. This had to be done on my terms, with precision and control. The first thing I needed to do was get her alone. I stared at my phone again, the one she had been texting. I hadn't looked at her message yet, not since the first time I saw it. It felt like reading it again would make the reality hit harder. But there was no turning back now. I was already deep in it. I scrolled through the thread and found a message that made my stomach turn. "I'll see you tonight, love." The word love stuck out like a knife in my chest. This wasn't some brief fling, some harmless mistake. This was a full betrayal. She had been playing the long game, and I had been too blind to see it. She wasn't the friend I thought she was. She was my enemy, just like him. I needed to make her feel the weight of her actions. But first, I had to set things in motion. I took a deep breath and dialed her number. I didn't give myself time to second guess. I wasn't going to be weak. I wasn't going to be the woman who cried in the corner and let this destroy her. I was going to be strong, methodical, cold. The phone rang twice before she picked up. "Hello." Her voice was soft, the way it always was when we'd chat about nothing, the way it was when we were friends. Now, I could only hear the lie in her tone. "Hey, it's me," I said, keeping my voice casual, but my mind was anything but calm. "How's everything?" "Oh, same old," she replied. I could practically hear her shrugging on the other end. She had no idea what was coming. "I was just thinking about calling you. Have you been?" "It feels like forever." I could hear the lie, even in her words. She had been thinking about me, but not the way friends should. No, she had been thinking about her next move. I wasn't her friend anymore. I was just a stepping stone to get what she wanted. She was the type of person who saw everything as a game, and I was the latest pawn. I let a small chuckle escape. "I've been, okay. Just been busy." "Yeah? What with?" I paused, considering my next words carefully. "Oh, just some things I've been working on. You know how it is." She didn't question it. She didn't even seem to notice the shift in my tone. Her ignorance was her own curse, and I was going to use it to my advantage. "I was thinking, maybe we could get together soon? Catch up?" She suggested, completely oblivious to the fact that I had already caught her in her lies. I couldn't let her off that easy. Not this time. I needed to take control of the situation. I knew exactly how to lure her in. "Sure, I'd like that," I said. "But how about tonight? I have something to tell you. Something important." Her tone shifted slightly. She sounded almost too eager. "Really? What's going on?" I took a breath, forcing my hands not to tremble. "I'll tell you when I see you. I think it's time we had a real conversation." It was perfect. She would come, and I would have her right where I wanted her. The plan was falling into place, but I couldn't let her see any hint of suspicion. I had to keep my emotions in check. This was a game now, and I was in control. She agreed to meet me that night at a local coffee shop. It was a public place, a neutral ground. I knew her too well. She would want to be safe, comfortable, without any real threat looming over her. She thought I had no idea. She thought I was still the naive, trusting friend. But by the end of tonight, she would know just how wrong she was. The next few hours felt like an eternity. I spent them pacing, making sure everything was in order. I checked my appearance, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a fire burn in me. Not for him. Not for the past. But for her. She was going to pay for this, and I wasn't going to give her any mercy. I left the house at 6:30 p.m., arriving at the coffee shop early. I didn't want her to have any time to prepare, to make excuses. I needed her raw, unprepared, just as I had been when I found out everything. I was the one who was going to control this conversation. I sat at a corner table, watching the door. Every time it opened, my heart skipped a beat, but I didn't let it show. I had to be cold. I had to stay calm. And then, there she was. She walked in, smiling, with no idea of the storm that was coming for her. I forced a smile, standing to greet her. "Hey," I said, my voice deceptively warm. "Hey," she replied, her usual bubbly self, completely unaware. She sat down, ordering her usual drink without a second thought. She still had the nerve to pretend like everything was fine. We exchanged pleasantries, but my mind was a million miles away. I was thinking about the words I would say, the way I would break her down. I couldn't afford to be weak. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. "So, what's so important?" she asked, leaning forward, her eyes full of curiosity. I took a deep breath. It was time. I leaned in, my eyes locking with hers, cold and unwavering. "I know everything." Her face faltered for the briefest moment. But it was enough. Her eyes widened, just for a second. But then, she caught herself. A quick flicker of fear, followed by that practiced smile, the one I used to see when we were friends. It made me sick now. The lie she was trying to keep up, like it was still possible to hide behind the mask. "Everything?" she asked, laughing it off. But there was a slight tremble in her voice, just enough for me to hear. "Yeah, everything," I replied, my voice cold and calm. The room around us seemed to close in, the buzz of the coffee shop fading into the background as I focused only on her. I could see her trying to play it cool, pretending nothing was wrong, but I wasn't about to let her. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, clearly trying to maintain her composure. It was too late for that. "Oh, I think you do," I said, leaning forward slightly. "I know about the texts, the late-night calls, the secret meetings. I know you've been with him." Behind my back. Her face went pale. I could see the blood drain from her cheeks as she processed my words. For a moment, she looked like a deer caught in headlights, unable to move, unable to speak. I let the silence hang in the air, letting her stew in the truth she had tried so hard to bury. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity, but it was only a few seconds. "You think you can just do this to me?" I asked, my voice suddenly sharp. I leaned even closer, watching the fear in her eyes grow. "You think I didn't see it? Didn't know? I knew long before I found the messages. But now? Now it's too late. I'm done being the fool." She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. She was panicking, and I could see it in the way her eyes darted around the room, looking for an escape, trying to think of something, anything, to get herself out of this. But it was no use. She had already lost. "You know what's funny?" I continued, my voice eerily calm. "You didn't even try to hide it. You were so sure that I wouldn't find out. So sure that I wouldn't see how you were looking at him, how you were sending him those stupid messages. You really thought I wouldn't notice." She opened her mouth again, but this time, words tumbled out. I never meant to hurt you, I swear. Don't lie to me," I snapped, cutting her off. "You never meant to hurt me? Then why did you do it? Why did you sleep with him? Why did you betray me like this? Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I wouldn't notice the way you both looked at each other? You were both so careless. So arrogant." Her hands were shaking now, and she tried to grip her cup, but it slipped through her fingers and spilled onto the table. The mess didn't matter. Nothing mattered now except what she had done. The truth hung in the air like a noose, tightening around both of us. "I never thought it would go this far," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It just happened. I never meant to hurt you, Elizabeth. I didn't want this." I could feel the tears welling up behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. Not now. Not ever again. "You didn't mean to hurt me? Are you serious? You think I'm that stupid?" I hissed, leaning back in my chair. You think I didn't see the way you were constantly talking to him? How he started staying out later and later. You were the one who kept telling me he was working late, but I knew. I knew all along, didn't I? She looked away, guilt flooding her expression. But it was too late for apologies, too late for regrets. I can't undo what I've done, she said, barely above a whisper. I'm so sorry, Elizabeth. I never meant to. You can't undo it, I said, my voice low and dangerous. But you're going to pay for it. And so is he. She froze. She knew exactly what I meant. The plan was in motion, and I wasn't stopping now. The weight of the betrayal was too much. I wasn't about to let them walk away from this. I stood up, and for the first time, she flinched, as if my movements had startled her. You're not getting away with this, you understand me? Not now, not ever. You don't just betray someone like this and walk free. There will be consequences. I didn't wait for her to respond. There was no point in listening to her excuses or her apologies. I had heard enough. She had already shown me who she was. And I was done. I turned and walked toward the door, leaving her there at the table. I knew what I had to do next, and I wasn't going to hesitate. I wasn't going to wait for things to fix themselves. I would take control of everything, of the situation of my life. I was done being a victim. I was done being the one who was left behind. Now, it was time for me to make them feel what they had done to me. The real game had just begun. The night felt colder than usual as I stepped out of the coffee shop, the weight of the confrontation still hanging in the air. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, my heart pounding with both anger and satisfaction. She had broken. She had crumbled under the weight of her own guilt. But that was only the beginning. I didn't look back. I couldn't afford to. I had crossed the point of no return, and now there was no turning back. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From anticipation. I got into my car and slammed the door shut, the sound echoing in the empty parking lot. I started the engine, the hum of the motor barely audible over the racing thoughts in my mind. What she didn't know, what neither she nor he knew, was that this was just the first part of my plan. The real revenge was coming, and it was going to hurt them more than they could ever imagine. I drove home, my mind working through the next steps. I needed to hit them where it would hurt the most. It wasn't just about making them regret their actions. It was about making sure they would never be able to move on from this. I wasn't going to make this quick. No, this was going to drag on until they had nothing left. And by the time it was over, they'd both be ruined. When I got back to the house, I sat in the driveway for a few minutes, just breathing. It was the calm before the storm. I had to be patient. I had to let everything unfold in its own time. And when it did, it would be beautiful. I grabbed my phone and sent a message to him. The first one in a long time. He had no idea that I knew everything. He still thought he had me fooled. But that was the beauty of it. He had no idea how much control I had now. We need to talk. I know everything. Don't try to lie to me. Be here by 9. I hit send, the words solidifying my resolve. It was time for him to face the consequences of his actions. He was going to come. I knew he would. He always came when I called, even if he didn't know why. That's how much he took me for granted. I threw the phone on the couch and went to the kitchen. I didn't feel the need to eat, but I needed something to calm my nerves. A glass of wine would do. I poured it slowly, savoring the deep red color, the way it swirled in the glass. It was almost poetic, like I was preparing for something big. Because I was. I sat at the kitchen table, my eyes fixed on the clock. Every tick of the second hand felt louder than the last. The plan was in motion, and all I had to do was wait. Wait for him to come. Wait for her to start feeling the sting of guilt. Wait for everything to fall into place. At 8:55, the doorbell rang. I wasn't surprised. I knew he would come. He always did when things got messy. I wasn't going to make this easy for him. Not this time. I opened the door, and there he was, standing there like nothing had changed. He was trying to look calm, but I could see the unease in his eyes. He knew. He knew something was wrong, but he had no idea what I had in store for him. Hey, he said, his voice low, trying to sound casual. What's going on? You said it was important. I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at him, taking in the sight of him. The man who had once promised me everything, only to take it all away. His eyes darted around the room, avoiding mine, but I wasn't going to let him off the hook that easily. "Come in," I said, stepping aside and gesturing for him to enter. He walked in, but I could see his hesitation. He was trying to figure out what was happening. But he wasn't going to get the chance to figure it out. Not yet. I closed the door behind him, locking it with a satisfying click. "Sit," I said, pointing to the chair across from me. He did as I asked, still trying to keep his composure. I poured him a glass of wine without asking if he wanted it. It didn't matter. I wasn't here to be polite. I was here to make sure he felt every ounce of what he had done to me. "So," I said, my voice calm, almost too calm. "You think you can get away with it?" He blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" I didn't answer. Instead, I slid my phone across the table, the message still visible. "You think I didn't know? You think I wouldn't find out? You've been lying to me this whole time. And you've been lying to her too. You think you can just walk around, pretending everything is fine." He stared at the phone, then at me, his face turning pale. "Elizabeth." No. "Don't try to explain yourself," I cut him off. "It's too late for that. You both crossed a line. And now, I'm going to make sure you pay for it." His mouth went dry, and I could see the panic rising in his chest. But it didn't matter. He had no control anymore. I did. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued, leaning forward. "I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who you are. Everyone will know what you did to me. What you did to us." He opened his mouth to speak again, but I stopped him with a raised hand. "No. You don't get to talk. You don't get to explain yourself. You just get to listen." I took a deep breath and stood up, pacing in front of him. "I'm not going to let you forget this. And neither is she." He looked up at me, desperation in his eyes. "Elizabeth, please." "Shut up," I said. "I'm done with your apologies. I'm done with your lies. And I'm done being the fool. Now, you're going to face the consequences." I could see the fight leaving him, the last bit of control slipping away. He had no choice but to listen to me now. The moment of reckoning had arrived, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. I smiled, knowing it was only the beginning. He had no idea what was coming next. The silence between us was deafening, stretching out longer than it should have. I stood there, watching him struggle, waiting for him to crack. I could see his mind racing, trying to think of some way to salvage this. But it was too late for him. He had no more chances. "Elizabeth," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. You have to believe me." I felt nothing. No pity, no anger, just emptiness. This man, the one I had trusted, the one I had loved, was standing before me, pleading, but he couldn't change what had already been done. He had destroyed everything, and now he was trying to piece together a broken apology. It didn't matter anymore. "You don't get to apologize now," I replied coldly. "You don't get to fix this with words. Words are cheap. You've had your chance." He reached out, his hand trembling like he was trying to touch me, but I backed away, refusing to let him get too close. "I don't want your touch." "Not anymore," I said, my voice steady. "You can keep your apologies and your lies. They're not going to fix what's broken." I could see the confusion in his eyes, the panic. He was desperate, but there was nothing he could do. The power had shifted. It was mine now, and I was in control. "Please," he begged again. "Don't do this. We can work through this, we can." "No." I cut him off sharply. "There is nothing left to work through. You've already destroyed everything. You just don't realize it yet." I walked toward the door, my heels clicking sharply against the floor. I wasn't sure where I was going, but I knew I needed to leave the house. I couldn't be in the same room as him any longer. The air felt thick, suffocating. Before I reached the door, I turned back to face him. He was sitting there, slumped, broken, a shell of the man he used to be. "You wanted this," I said, my voice low and full of venom. "You wanted to play with fire? Well, now you're burned. And I'm not the one to blame." He didn't say anything. He just sat there, the weight of his actions pressing down on him. He could see it now, couldn't he? The consequences of what he had done. I stepped outside, the cold air hitting me as I walked toward the car. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could already feel the satisfaction of the first part of my plan coming to fruition. He was going to feel the heat of his own betrayal, and it was only just beginning. But it wasn't enough yet. I couldn't stop now. He had to suffer more. He had to feel the sting of what he did, every second of every day, until there was nothing left for him to hold on to. The next step was already forming in my mind, clearer than ever. I had been too patient, too controlled in my actions, but I wasn't going to hold back anymore. He needed to lose everything. He needed to feel what it was like to be abandoned, to be alone. I got into the car and drove. I didn't know where I was going, but the motion gave me some peace. The city blurred past me as I focused on my next move. I wasn't just going to ruin his life. I was going to make sure everyone knew what he had done, what she had done. I thought about her for a moment. My best friend. The one who had betrayed me, the one who thought she could get away with it. She had no idea what was coming for her. I was going to make sure she understood the depth of the destruction she had caused. She had no place in my life anymore, and I would make sure no one else would trust her again. My fingers tightened on the steering wheel. I would make both of them regret ever thinking they could get away with this. As I reached my destination, I took a deep breath, letting the cold air in to clear my mind. It was time to take the next step. Time to make them both pay. I walked into the building, the plan already set in motion in my head. I didn't need to wait anymore. This was the moment. I was done being the victim. Now, it was time to become the force that would destroy everything they had built. The plan was unfolding perfectly, but I couldn't afford to get comfortable. Not yet. I had spent too much time being passive, waiting for something to happen. Now, I was the one who was making it happen. And I was about to turn everything up a notch. I walked into the building, the cold, sterile walls doing nothing to dull the fire burning inside me. I wasn't here to make friends. I wasn't here to apologize. I was here to take control, to destroy the lives of the people who had once meant everything to me. I walked past the receptionist, who didn't even give me a second glance, too absorbed in her phone. I wasn't here for pleasantries. I didn't have time for that. I made my way up the stairs to his office, each step feeling heavier than the last. My heart was steady, my breath shallow, but my thoughts were razor-sharp. The man I once trusted had shattered my world, and now it was time for me to shatter his. When I reached the door to his office, I didn't knock. I didn't need to. I was already in control of this moment. I pushed open the door, and there he was, sitting behind his desk, acting like nothing was wrong. He didn't even look up when I entered. "Elizabeth," he said, his voice casual, as if nothing had changed. "I wasn't expecting you. Did you think I would just let you get away with it?" I asked, my voice cutting through the air. He finally looked up, his face showing a mix of surprise and confusion. He didn't know what was coming, and I wasn't going to let him prepare for it. "What do you mean?" he asked, the tone of his voice betraying his nervousness. I could see the sweat beading on his forehead, and it made me smile. He was scared. "Finally. I mean that everything you've built is about to come crashing down," I said. "I know everything, John. Every little secret you thought you could keep hidden. But now? Now, the world will know. And I'm going to make sure they know the truth about you. About your lies, your betrayal, about her." His face paled, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Good. It was about time. "Elizabeth, please," he started, his voice desperate. "You don't have to do this. I know I've messed up, but we can fix this." "No," I interrupted. "It's too late for fixing. It's too late for apologies. The damage is done. Now, I'm going to make sure you suffer the consequences. You and her both. You don't get to destroy my life and just walk away." He opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. He was caught. He knew I had him. And there was nothing he could do. "I'm going to expose you," I said. "And I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who you are. You think you can get away with this, but you're wrong. You'll pay for everything you've done to me." I turned to leave, but before I reached the door, I looked back at him, my heart pounding with satisfaction. "You're going to regret this, John. I'm going to make sure you do." As I walked out of his office, I felt the weight lifting off my shoulders. The first part of the plan was complete, but it was far from over. I had taken the first step. Now it was time to watch everything fall apart. I went straight home, my mind already planning the next move. I knew exactly what I needed to do, and I wasn't going to wait around any longer. I wasn't going to give him a chance to recover. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and began typing. The message would be simple, but effective. One click, and everything would change for him. For both of them. The world would know the truth. They wouldn't be able to hide anymore. But there was still more to do. Much more. I was just getting started. The moment I pressed send, a weight lifted off my chest. It was done. The first step in my master plan. I sat back in my chair, watching the little spinning wheel on the screen as the message sent. I had just taken the first real step in ruining him and her. They both had no idea what was coming. I leaned back, breathing slowly, trying to calm my racing heart. This wasn't just revenge. It wasn't just about making them feel the pain I had felt. This was about showing them who was truly in control. For so long, they had been the ones pulling the strings, walking around in their little world of deceit, with no regard for the mess they were creating. But now, the tables had turned. The message I had sent wasn't a simple text or email. It was much more than that. It was the beginning of the unraveling of their entire lives. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. They wouldn't be able to ignore this. The world was about to know the truth. It wasn't long before my phone buzzed with an incoming message. I didn't need to look at the screen to know who it was. I had been expecting this. John was scrambling, trying to contain the damage. But there was no way he could. I opened the message. It was from him. Elizabeth, I know you're angry, but please, we can talk about this. I'm begging you, don't do this. I smiled bitterly. This was the moment I had been waiting for. He wasn't in control anymore. I was. I typed back quickly, talk? You think I want to talk to you? You're pathetic. I want nothing to do with you. And as for the rest of it, you'll see soon enough. Everyone will. I hit send. The buzz of my phone again, this time from her. I wasn't surprised. She was probably panicking, trying to salvage whatever little dignity she had left. But I wasn't about to make this easy for her. Her message came through. Elizabeth, please, I never meant for this to happen. It was a mistake, I swear. I was confused. I was wrong, and I'm so sorry. I stared at the screen. The words were hollow, empty. There was no sincerity in them, no remorse. She didn't care. She never did. I typed, a mistake? You call that a mistake? You've ruined everything. I'll make sure you never forget what you did. I'll make sure the world knows exactly who you really are. I let the message sit for a moment before I pressed send. I could already feel the tension building. They were both going to feel the fallout. They thought they could just walk away from their betrayal, but they had no idea what I was capable of. The next few days were a blur of activity. I had prepared everything meticulously. There were calls to make, emails to send, things to arrange. I needed to make sure the world saw them for who they truly were: liars, cheaters, manipulators. No one would ever trust them again. I watched as the pieces fell into place. The phone calls, the notifications, people were beginning to take notice. I wasn't going to just expose them to a few friends or acquaintances. No, I wanted the whole world to know. I reached out to a few key people, people who had the connections, the platforms to spread the message far and wide. I didn't care about the collateral damage anymore. I didn't care who got hurt in the process. I had already been hurt enough. Now it was their turn. And it didn't take long before the gossip started. First, it was small whispers, people who were close to me, who knew what was going on. But soon, the whispers grew louder. They spread like wildfire, seeping into the cracks of their carefully curated worlds. It wasn't long before the first public scandal hit. It started with a post on social media. One of their mutual friends had shared something that connected the dots in a way that couldn't be ignored. And that was just the beginning. The messages, the texts, the emails, I had everything. And now everyone would see the truth. I could feel it then, the satisfaction of knowing that they had nowhere to hide. I could hear John's voice in my head, begging me to stop. Please, Elizabeth, don't do this. Don't make me lose everything. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. The rage I felt had given way to something much colder. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about justice. They needed to understand what it felt like to have everything they cared about stripped away, just like I had. And with each passing hour, their world crumbled just a little bit more. The final blow came when the media picked up on the story. The first news article, a small one, appeared in an online gossip column. It wasn't much at first, just a few lines, but it was enough to set the stage. As the day wore on, the story spread like wildfire, gaining traction as more and more people shared it. The lies they had told were coming undone. Everything they had worked for, their careers, their reputations, their carefully built lives gone. And I couldn't help but watch, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. They had played with fire. Now they were burned. But it wasn't over yet. I wasn't going to be satisfied with just the public shaming. I wanted them to feel the financial consequences. I wanted them to lose everything. And I would make sure that happened. I had the power now. And I wasn't going to let it go to waste. As I sat there, watching the chaos unfold, I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. They had crossed me. And now it was my turn to watch them fall. It was the last day of the storm. The calm before the final crash. As the media frenzy continued to churn, I could feel the tide of victory swelling beneath me. It was no longer just about revenge. This had grown into something much bigger, something more powerful than I had ever imagined. But I knew that this final move would be the one that would seal their fate for good. The pieces had been set, and now I was going to make sure the entire game played out just the way I wanted it. I sat at my desk, looking over the final details. Everything was in place. The emails, the messages, the social media posts, each one more damning than the last. The story was now inescapable. They couldn't hide anymore. There was no more pretending. The world knew what they were. And soon, so would they. But I wasn't just going to let them sink quietly into their shame. No, I wanted them to feel every ounce of destruction that came with the weight of their betrayal. I reached for my phone, sending one final message to him. I hope you're ready to lose everything. The truth is out. You think it's bad now? Wait until you see what's coming next. I could already feel the rush of power surging through me as I hit send. I was done being the victim. I was done being the one who stood by silently as my life was torn apart. I was the one pulling the strings now. Within minutes, I received a reply. Elizabeth, please. You don't have to do this. Let's just talk. Let's figure this out. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Talk? After everything? After the lies? After the betrayal? He thought we could still work things out? It wasn't that simple. It never had been. There's nothing left to talk about, John. You've lost. And now, so have I. But I'm not going to let you drag me down with you. Not anymore. It was done. I knew he was sitting there somewhere, trying to figure out how he had gotten caught in my web. But it was too late. I had planned this from the beginning, and he had walked right into it, every step of the way. Now it was time to watch everything crumble. As the hours passed, the media coverage continued to grow. The whispers turned into headlines. The story was everywhere. It wasn't just the cheating scandal anymore. It was a story of betrayal, manipulation, lies, and everything they had tried so desperately to hide. But I didn't stop there. I'd made sure that their professional lives were just as destroyed as their personal ones. It wasn't just their reputations that were on the line now, it was their livelihood. The networks that once supported them, the businesses that depended on their faces, all of it was disintegrating. People were pulling contracts. Deals were falling through. Calls were being ignored. The life they had worked so hard to build was slipping away, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. It was beautiful. They were finally paying for what they had done to me. To us. But as I watched everything fall apart, something shifted in me. The rage, the desire for revenge, began to dull, leaving behind an eerie calmness. I had done it. I had broken them. But in the end, I wasn't sure if I felt better. Sure, they were paying the price, and they deserved it. But there was something missing. The satisfaction I had hoped to feel wasn't as fulfilling as I thought it would be. Maybe it was because I had spent so long fighting to make them feel the same pain I had felt. But now that it was done, all I felt was emptiness. It wasn't the victory I had imagined. It wasn't the justice I had craved. I realized that I had spent too much of my life focusing on their betrayal, on their destruction. I had built my entire world around making them pay. But now that I had seen the full scope of their downfall, it didn't feel as good as I thought it would. As I sat there, watching the final pieces of their world crash around them, I understood something. This wasn't really about them anymore. It was about me. It was about taking control of my life again. It was about stepping away from the wreckage and finding peace in the aftermath. The power had been in my hands all along. And now I was ready to move forward. I didn't need to drag them through any more pain. I had made my point. They had paid their price. But I would never forget what they had done. I would never forget the lies, the betrayal, the pain. That was something they would never be able to take away from me. As I closed the door behind me, I knew that my life was finally my own again. No more lies. No more manipulation. Just me. Ready to rebuild. Ready to move on. And no one could ever take that away from me. Not again. The end.